Today I'm going to be installing a shutoff valve on the supply line for the toilet in our Casita. This spring, my father-in-law had a near catastrophe with his camper when he got ready to go. Fortunately, he was testing the plumbing before he left and filling the water tank and discovered that his flush valve in his toilet had frozen over winter and broken. So since he hadn't left yet, it wasn't a big deal to get it repaired. But if you were out on a trip, if you had a shutoff valve when you discovered something was broken, you'd be able to shut it off and still flush your toilet with a pan of water or something like that if you needed to. I bought this one at our local Menards. The instructions that came with this one are really worthless, so I was fortunate to find instructions from Greg at the Handy Camper for installing this in your Casita. I also went to the valve manufacturer's website, and they did have a pretty good video on how to use the push-to-connect system. But I'm going to show it here rather than in the camper because it's kind of tight quarters in there. So there is a little line on this valve. You can just barely see it here, but that indicates the depth from the outer edge here to that line, which is where the pipe will be seated. I'm just going to make a little mark on that. That makes it easier to see. There's one on either side. So then you take your piece of pipe and you lay it against there and mark how far that's going to get inserted. Then you take this piece, which is a insert to keep the pipe from collapsing. You have to use it on PEX. Now you don't necessarily need to if you have copper tubing. And then all you have to do is push the pipe in to make sure you're past your mark. And then they have this little locking device you can stick in there. You don't have to use the locking device, but it's a little extra security. And you just push that in, and then the connection is locked. These are reusable, which is good because I'll probably install it backwards the first time. But to take it off, all you have to do is push that collet in and then pull, and it comes back out. So what I noticed when I was doing my test earlier is that the little sleeve doesn't come back out with it. I tried grabbing it with a pair of needle nose pliers and it still didn't want to come, and I didn't want to force it, ruin my valve. So I just left it in there, but you can still just push it in and it's connected. Now we will go to the camper and do it for real. Before I cut the tubing on the supply line going to the toilet, I'm going to flush the toilet just to make sure there isn't any pressure on there. It's been a while since we camped, but as you can hear, there's still quite a lot of pressure on there that would spray me in the face if I tried to do it without letting the pressure off. Next, I'm going to decide where I want this valve, which is going to be on the supply line about halfway in the middle there. And then I'll make a mark where I want the line to go. I made a mark on the supply line where I want to install the valve. As you can see, those two marks, they are right at 1 inch apart. So I'm going to make another mark on the supply line that is 1 inch away from my initial line, and I'll make 2 cuts, and then I'll have 2 ends to put in the valve. I'm going to use this little tubing cutter to cut the piece of pipe out. You could use one of those PEX knives, which would be obviously perfect for this job, but I don't have one of those. They're like a pair of pliers that have a razor blade inside of them, and they're made for cutting PEX tubing. I've got my tubing cutter put on the pipe, and I'll just rotate it around and tighten the screw as I go. The important part is that you get a straight cut So if you go back and forth when you're beginning like this, it'll make it so it goes in a straight line rather than a spiral. Just keep tightening that thumb screw as you go. And there's a little bit of water left. Okay, that's our first cut. I'll do it again on the second one. I've got my 1-inch piece of pipe cut out and removed, so now I just need to put that back on, shove it in there until it's all the way in, and then do the same thing over here on the other side. And just like that, it's installed. This is what the valve looks like when it's installed with the little lock pieces in there on the collet. I've filled the lines with water and flushed all the air out of them, so now the toilet is back in service with no leaks. To turn off the water, all you need to do is turn this valve, and that turns it off. Turn the handle that direction to turn it back on. Off, on. Now I'm going to repeat the process for the toilet in our Avion camper. The supply line is the gray line back here. And you can see I've already made 2 marks on it that are 1 inch apart. I'm going to go get a towel and put that underneath to catch any residual water. And then I'll make the cuts and install the valve. Okay, I've got the 2 pieces cut off square, and I checked to make sure there were no burrs. I'm going to put these 2 end pieces in. Those are little sleeves to prevent the pecs from collapsing. If you were using copper pipe, you wouldn't need to do that. And now I'm going to install the valve, and I might have to turn this off so I can do it two-handed. There is the completed installation on the toilet valve in the Avion. It will shut off the supply of water to the toilet in the event that there's a leak in the toilet valve or something. And it was a relatively easy installation to complete.